Ermentine. She hadn't even thought of acting on Pilch's suggestion. But once they'd landed, there suddenly wasn't much to keep her busy, and she could shift priority to listening to herself think. It was one of those interim periods where everything was being prepared and nothing had got started. As a plasmoid planet, Luscious was pretty much of a bust. It was true that plasmoids were here. It was also true that until fairly recently, plasmoids were being produced here. By the simple method of looking where they were thickest, Cellon's people had even located the plasmoid which had been producing the others several days before Mantelish arrived to confirm their find. This one, by the plasmoid's standards of Luscious, was a regular monster. Some 25 inches high, a gray, mummy-like thing, dead and half rotted inside. It was the first plasmoid, with the possible exception of whatever had flattened itself on Quillen's gravity mine, known to have died. There had been very considerable excitement when it was first discovered, because the description made it sound very much as if they'd finally located 112-113. They hadn't. This one, if Trigger had followed Mantelish correctly, could be regarded as a cheap imitation of 112, and its productions, compared with the working plastic life of Harvest Moon, appeared to be strictly on a kindergarten level. Nuts and bolts, and less than that. To Trigger, most of the ones that had been collected looked like assorted bugs and worms, though one at least was the size of a small pig.
"No form, no pattern," Mantelish rumbled. "Was the thing practicing? Did it attempt to construct an assistant and set it down here to test it? Well, now."
He went off again to incomprehensibilities, apparently no longer entirely dissatisfied.
"Get me 112," he bellowed. "Then this business will be solved. Meanwhile, we now at least have plasmoid material to waste. We can experiment boldly. Come, Lyad, my dear."
And Lyad followed him into the lab unit, where they went to work again, dissecting, burning, stimulating, inoculating, and so forth, great numbers of more or less pancake-sized subplasmoids. This morning, Trigger wasn't getting down to the best semi-drowsy level at all readily. And it might very well be that Lyad, my dear business. "You know," she had told the Commissioner thoughtfully the day before, "by the time we're done, Lyad will know more about plasmoids than anyone in the Hub except Mantelish." He didn't look concerned. "Won't matter much. By the time we're done, she and the rest of the Ermentines will have had to cough up control of Tranest. They've broken treaty with this business."
"Oh," Trigger said. "Does Lyad know that?"
"Sure. She also knows she's getting off easy. If she were a Federation citizen, she'd be up for compulsory rehabilitation right now."
"She'll try something if she gets half a chance," Trigger warned.
"She sure will," the Commissioner said absently. He went on with his work. It didn't seem to be Lyad that was bothering. Trigger lay flat on her back in the shallow sandbar, arms behind her head, feeling the sun's warmth on her closed eyelids. She watched her thoughts drift by slowly. It just might be Quillen. Old Major Quillen. The rescuer in time of need. The not Catassin smasher. Quite a guy. The water murmured past her. On the ride out here, they'd run by one another now and then, going from job to job. After they'd arrived, Quillen was gone 3/4 of the time, helping out on the hunt for the concealed Devagas fortress. It was still concealed. They hadn't yet picked up a trace. But every so often he made it back to camp. And every so often, when he was back in camp and didn't think she was looking, he'd be sitting there looking at her. Trigger grinned happily. Old Major Quillen. Being bashful. Well, now. And that did it. She could feel herself relaxing. Slipping down and away, drifting down through her mind. Further, deeper, toward the tiny voice that spoke in such a strange language, and still was becoming daily more comprehensible. Say, Trigger!" End of chapter 24.